Lingonberries, they are a Scandinavian treasure. If you've never had a lingonberry, the first thing you'll think of if you try one is cranberry, and they're very similar. Sometimes the lingonberry is called a mountain cranberry, or a cowberry, or a partridge berry in parts of Canada. They're common throughout northern Europe and parts of Canada, and even down into Michigan and the northern states on the east coast. The plant is very cold hardy. They grow in northern climates. They're probably good down to a zone 3. They do need special soil conditions for them to grow productively. So I plant them in basically pure peat moss. And with the pure peat moss, I just mix in a bag of compost to 2 large bales of peat moss. I do add some elemental sulfur. This is like a slow release elemental sulfur to this to make sure that the pH stays down. I just sprinkle a little bit on it, and eventually I'll put some organic material over top to keep this moist. As you can see, it's already drying up, and had this soaked yesterday. But if you water it every day a little bit, it will stay quite moist, and these plants will stay quite healthy. And one of the important things is, other than the acidity of the soil, is you should never let the soil or the growing medium dry out for lingonberries. If you do, it's detrimental to the plant. They tend to grow in moist forest environments. I'll show you a better example. Now this would be a better place for growing the lingonberries. There's a coniferous forest on this part. It was planted years ago. And it's wet, and all these pines and fir trees tend to produce acidic soil beneath them. And because this is all on a slope, it pushes a lot of the acidic elements down to this kind of wet, or the low area, which is kind of near a stream. So this is an area that's almost permanently wet, or at least damp and very acidic. And I would prefer to grow my lingonberries here, though I have some work to do on this area, so it will be in time. Now the reason why I planted in this 4x4 box is because I can keep them alive. They will reproduce by rhizomes, and I'm hoping over the next year, as this is a new planting that I did this year, that they will spread, and I'll be able to split the rhizomes and plant them over in the preferred section once I get some work on the drainage done in that area. I got to bring in an excavator, so it's not worth doing now because I'll end up just having to dig up the plants. Now the fruit, these ones have a few small fruit coming out. Right now they're just a little green berry. Each fruit weighs about 0.2 to 0.4 grams, which is pretty small. It's slightly smaller than a blueberry. They are not that sweet. They're 12 to 14 brix, and if you compare that to a wine grape, like a Riesling grape, that comes in at about 22 brix. So it's about half as sweet as a wine grape. Now the acidity is twice that of a wine grape, so they do have that tart flavor. So if you think of a cranberry, very much like that. However, I've tried lingonberries before. In my mind, from what I remember, they're a little bit softer than a cranberry and a little bit juicier. And if you pick them after the first frost, they're said to sweeten up. And that's the same with aronia berries and a few other berries, that after the first frost, the plant really puts the last bit of effort into sweetening up the fruit. Lingonberries have a high content of benzoic acid. It's also found in blueberries, and it's a natural preservative. It's very hard to get these to ferment, so that's why you'll never find a lingonberry product that's fermented. Though there's a research paper on how to get lingonberries to ferment, but first you have to inoculate them with a lot of yeast. That yeast will bring in the benzoic acid. That benzoic acid will inhibit the yeast. Then you have to filter out all that yeast and add another batch of yeast. And then the first batch basically filters out the benzoic acid, and then the second batch can ferment. Based on the fact that each plant may only produce 75 grams to 150 grams of berries, it would require a lot of berries to make a fermented product. Now, if you're in Scandinavian countries where they grow wild in the woodlands, you can pick as many as you want, and it is a pretty common tradition to pick lingonberries there. Here, not so much, but for me, I like the fact that they're acidic. There's not a lot of, for farm food feast, one of the issues is that growing lemon and limes is pretty difficult in this climate. And I don't think I'd be able to produce anything that has the acidity that these do. So for dishes that need some acidity or tartness, I think lingonberries are going to probably be an element of that. At least that's why I'm growing them, is within this idea of creating a world-class meal from this one property. I need to pick foods that have a purpose. And lingonberries are going to bring the tartness. Though they do have the sweetness, but they just have that high acid level. So one of the questions is, should you grow lingonberries? Now, cranberries do need special conditions as well, though they do grow. There's North American and European varieties of cranberries. They tend to need wetter soil. And cranberries, you can get ones that are far more productive than lingonberries. So depending on the conditions you have for growing, it might be easier to grow cranberries. And I don't think you're going to miss too much comparison-wise. However, they do make a great ground cover, and I find them, they're a pleasant-looking plant, and I do have an area to grow them. Basically perfect conditions, so that's why I've chosen these. I will eventually probably grow cranberries too and do a comparison. Lingonberries also produce 2 crops a year, or at least some varieties do, so you can get an early crop in July and then a late crop in October. And one of the goals for all these berries that I have produced is to create octopi. Now, octopi is just a pie with 8 different berries in it, so I don't know if anybody's done it. I don't think so, at least not on YouTube, but definitely going to give it a try once I get all these berries in sync. And lingonberries are an important part of it. So if you like lingonberries or like the description of them, go for it. They make a great garden addition, and they make an excellent ground cover if you have the acidic soil. If you have any questions, post them in the comment section and I'll see what I can answer. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.